All right, well, we are officially at 2 o'clock. So I think I'll get us rolling in deference to the people who are here and who are here on time. I see people more and more coming in all the time here. But we'll get started. So good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm Mike Jameson, Managing Director of Stryker-Munley Group. I'd like to welcome all of you from around the country joining us in a discussion of how best to communicate through COVID-19 and into the future. I hope you're all well and staying safe. As a group, our presenters here today have a great deal of experience with issues management and crisis communications. We're going to speak a bit about what you can do today to work through your issues, but more importantly, we're going to talk about what happens next, after the crisis has passed, and it will. What will your world look like, and how can you best adapt? To be sure, it won't be business as usual. We'll not be going back to normal. As in all major crises, what comes after is a new normal, perhaps even a better normal. We can guess at what's to come, but we don't have all the answers. What we can do is to be prepared to communicate to our staff and customers in a way that will get us all moving in the direction of success. These methods do not change, and it's here that our experience will be valuable. Our presentation will take about 25 minutes. After that, we'll have a question and answer session. You'll see a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, I hope. We will also make the entire presentation available via video link for all of you, so feel free not to take notes. We are going to get started with Casey Boggs in Portland.
Thank you, Mike. Hello, everyone. I truly hope you, your family, and your team are doing well. Boy, what a crisis. What a crisis. What a crisis. Anyways, we're going to take the next 20, 30 minutes to walk you through a lot of the steps, actions. Won't give us a whole lot of time to get into too much detail, but we're going to top line it for you. But it's a time to also take a big breath. For last month, we've gone through the ringer, right? It's been so many different unforeseen, undiscussed things that most folks have not gone through these types of crises. But in a way, we have. The team here we've assembled really has gone through this, and me personally, for better for worse, been through what we call crisis sprints, and this one is what we call a crisis marathon. And the difference really is the crisis sprints that we've done through, from everything from the race riots in Los Angeles in '92 to the .com bust and explosion to the 9/11. And then obviously everything else in between, the financial disruption and 08. Boy, we are seeing something we've never seen before. But again, the rules still apply if it being a sprint or a marathon. But what comes out of all of this, more than anything, is communications. And that's what we're going to provide today. How to communicate now, but also to how to communicate after this is all done. And they very much are similar. And I want to start really by underscoring the regularity of your communications. The term over-communicate is key, maybe, but we will also want to emphasize finding a rhythm or a pattern on your communications. And what I mean by that is scheduling meetings with your target audience on communicating to them on Fridays or twice a week or throughout the month, but have a scheduled time so your target audience knows what to expect from you and what you're going to be saying ahead of time. Because it's not good enough anymore just to sporadically shoot a note out and say, okay, we're going to communicate now. But the best practice that we've seen through any crisis is providing kind of that regularity of communications. And what do you say in that communications? Well, my colleague Kevin will provide a little more of that depth and tone, but I want to underscore really empathy. Come from the heart, be real, provide some really concise, clear information that's going on, being as transparent as you never have before. Right now, you have to be as transparent with your financials, with what's going on, with the conversations you're having with your staff, with your, with the members, your customers, your patients, whomever. Right now, it's time to be transparent. And one piece I want to underscore as well is exercising the inside-out approach to communications during a crisis. Not one size fits all here, folks. And what I mean by that is look at all your take an exercise here. Look at all your priority audiences and list those out, and then prioritize what you're going to, who should be communicated to first, what you're going to tell them, and then take a kind of a sequential look at how you're going to communicate moving forward. And it starts with the board, it starts with executives, but certainly flows all the way through. There's going to be some consistency in all that communication, but make sure that you think through every audience as you're doing so. Now I want to take you through more of best practices on providing reassurance as well as direction. So reassurance, we got this, right? They're looking for a leader, looking for a guide, and you're it. And I'm talking to you as a leader, but more along the lines of the tone can't be as scary and as apocalyptic as I've heard and seen before. But I've seen the leaders who do the best job really have that, the pom-poms are out. We got this. It has to be real for sure. And it's certainly striking a balance between being too overly optimistic, but more lines of, hey, we're going to get through this, and really providing that empathy. Sharing your story, sharing the stories of the staff, really kind of get into that real aspect. And the direction here, I want to underscore, you have to be the guide. You have to be the guide through all this. Put folks on your back and provide that guidance, that support on what's going to happen, what's happening now, what's going to be around the corner. Give them a little bit of sneak peek here, especially afterwards. I think that right now we're in the thick of things. It's hard to provide that direction, but also on all your communications right now, provide that we're seeing this and we're going to be presenting this. We're going to alter our products and services accordingly, providing that information, and then communicate it as regularly as possible, as much as you are now and after COVID. Also want to share with some best practices on the channels of communications. So right now we are working with the nursing associations. We're working with the financial services world. We're working with real estate, both the commercial and the residential side. We're also working with the financial leaders here in the banks and credit unions. And one, or actually three areas that we've seen the best value here as far as their communications channels is the Q&A. The old Q&A, but it's as opposed to writing this long soliloquy of wonderful words on, hey, we got this or whatever, put it in a Q&A format. What are the questions that are in the psyche and the minds of your audience, your staff, your employees, your customers, your influencers? What's in this? What are the questions that they actually have? And then answer them and put it in that format. And also it's your chance to anticipate questions, right? And also to a video. No better time now than ever. This is an awkward thing that we've all learned how to do Zoom. And better for worse, we are using Zoom. Use video to your advantage and provide those timely messages and be real. Nothing more than 60 or 90 seconds. And one tip here as well, the gold standard that I've seen is the Marriott CEO. He is providing some really good candid information right now on what's going on in their company. It seems to be, it's almost a heartfelt, transparent message that's going on to not only their employees, but also to customers that, hey, we got this. Yeah, it's going to hurt, and that's what's going on. And also labeling out as much detail as possible. But it really does provide kind of the gold standard in how you're going to communicate through video. And the last part here is a town hall meeting. Similar to the video, which is have a structure, 60 to 90 seconds, the town hall meeting provides a little more of a venue to not only yourself, but also other folks like the CFO or the patient relationship manager or the chief information officer. Provide the key elements, the key stakeholders in your group to provide that message on a regular basis. So a good mixture of Q&A, a video, and a town hall meetings are going to get you through this not only now, but also do afterwards. Adopt these mechanisms. And the last part I want to talk about is the crisis response teams. So now that you're in the thick of things, you're learning how to really become a crisis responder and incident response responder. That's fine, but I would encourage you to deputize one or two folks from that team to start looking at future crises. Not only COVID, but also to some other ones as well that you want to make sure that they are seeing the future. What's going to happen? What are some ramifications behind what's happening here, and preparing accordingly? Because during a crisis, to actually make some changes, it's fine, but more lines of your next team has to look to the future and anticipate accordingly. So that's it for me. I want to turn it over to my colleague in Boston, Mr. Kevin.
Thanks, Casey. I just want to say a quick thanks to everybody out there for joining us today. I'm sure most of you are probably feeling pretty zoomed out at this point. So we appreciate you taking some time out of your day to join one more Zoom meeting, adding that to your calendar and being with us here today. I look forward to what everybody has to share at the end. So I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible so we can get to hear your thoughts and ideas and insights as well. So with that said, I want to talk a little bit about the important role we need to play as we begin to plan our emergence from this crisis and into recovery mode. At Stryker-Munley, we firmly believe that communicators and marketers are not only the owners and gatekeepers of the brand and the messaging, but that we must also be change agents and business strategists within our own organizations. None of us can truly be effective at our jobs if we're tasked with communicating information that isn't aligned with the realities of the organization. So it falls on us to not just communicate the message, but to really understand that the messages we are communicating are based in reality, based in the capabilities of our organization as they've changed through this crisis, right? And as we emerge from this, we're going to go from crisis response to change management. And we need to be able to flick that switch and understand that we are now in a change management mode. And to do that, we have to understand how the crisis has changed the company, and your organization, and how it's changed employees. And then we have to look outside and see how has the crisis changed all the people we need to communicate effectively with, our customers, our partners, our key stakeholders. And we need to look at this change, not just in terms of how do we have to sell different to them, but really understand the change on a professional level. How have people's jobs changed? Are they even in the same jobs that they were? We may find that our marketing lists, 40% of our marketing lists are invalid now because people aren't in those jobs anymore. So if we do a lot of email marketing, we may have bad lists now. So we need to go out and refresh those. We need to think about personally how people have been impacted, financially, and then also socially, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And we need to look at all of those, gather as much data as we can about how people have been impacted to truly understand how we strike the right tone and the right timing with our messaging as we emerge from this crisis and manage change. A couple quick examples from my own experience. The CEO of one of our client companies had his, in the last, within the span of a week, had his mother-in-law and his wife's grandfather pass away from COVID-19. And knowing that helps me be a better consultant to them in terms of how we interact. We have another organization that is a large human service agency, and they provide training, day rehabilitation training services for people with developmental disabilities. And they had one of their clients post on a social media channel that if they didn't reopen their day rehabilitation facility immediately, that individual was threatening to harm himself. And so monitoring your social channels for communications about how your target audiences are feeling and the people you serve are feeling is really important. And we can't promise what we can't deliver. So to do that, we have to look at how we're restructuring operations based on how the crisis has affected our organization and the people that work for us and the people we serve. We need to find authoritative and validated sources of information to make those decisions. So so the key tip here is we won't have all the answers, and that's okay. But there are some ways that you can go about gathering some information. This is a quick matrix that we use a lot at SMG. So it basically aligns 3 pillars of value for every organization. And those are operational excellence, product leadership, and customer intimacy. And there are attributes under each one of these that speak to those value pillars. So for operational excellence, it might be client or customer service, it might be your delivery times or your responsiveness, your attitude and philosophy as an organization. Product leadership, the quality of your products, what your unique offerings are, the people that work for the organization, and then your ability to innovate and create. Customer intimacy, right? brand awareness. How well do your audiences understand? How loyal are they to you? How much knowledge and data do you have access to understand your customers and your stakeholders? And what are the strengths of your relationships and partnerships? All of these things are going to change as a result of this crisis. So it's time to take a look at these things and reset and make sure that all of your brand messaging and your communications are aligned with the new reality of your organization and the new reality of the people that you are serving and delivering your products and services to. It's really, really important. I think, Mike, next slide, please. So how do we do this? We got to take control, right? You have to embrace the change, and you've got to be flexible. So, start doing your calisthenics and limber up a little bit. So we have to look ahead, not back. And internally, we want to set new expectations and goals. So the metrics that we've all been using as professional communicators within our organizations are going to change, right? Sales goals might not be the same. Marketing metrics might be different. If your company was a bricks and mortar business that had a whole bunch of locations and now those are shuttered and not all of them will be reopening, then your metrics are changing. I mentioned earlier, your lists for who you're marketing to might change. So we have to understand those changes, set new goals and expectations so that the employees that are still with you and the customers that you're still serving understand what those new expectations are, right? We always talk about change and people not liking change, but that's not necessarily true. People don't like change when they feel like they don't have any control over it. We all like change when we control the change, right? We have a say in the matter. We understand what the changes are going to be, and we're contributing in a positive way towards those changes. So change management has to be, you have to involve everybody in your organization, and building those relationships operationally throughout your organization as a communicator is really important. So that if a message comes down from the C-suite that the organization needs to move its messaging in a certain way, that you're confident that operationally the company has the capability to fulfill that promise. So you're going to follow your communications all the way through to the end. What is it that we want people to think, feel, and do, and make sure that we are operationally aligned to accomplish that. And all of this relies on setting the right tone. And a big part of that is don't rush the recovery process at the expense of your brand. Right? Understand what the right pace is to move based on the changes that you understand have happened within your organization and with the people you're trying to communicate with. And be a service organization. Every single company's #1 product coming out of this crisis is going to be customer service, and really understanding where their customer's mindset is at. So be a service organization and align your tone and messaging across all your communications. If you work in a large organization, you may only control one silo of your organization's messaging. But you got to make sure that you're aligned across your organization so that there isn't a disconnect between what sales and marketing is saying versus what corporate communications might be saying. Right? And this goes even if you're a small business owner or you're a one-person department within a small organization, you still want to make sure that all the messaging is aligned and consistent so that you're striking the same consistent tone and timing with everything. And the key tip here is be ready to adapt on the fly. Planning is important, but things are changing very, very quickly and will continue to change very quickly. And you have to become a flexible organization who doesn't get flustered by change, but embraces it and adapts to it and rises to the challenge. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, David Thalberg, in our Los Angeles office.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm going to focus on the brass tacks of media relations and dealing with media. So once again, I also want to start and say thank you for all taking time for your 1000th Zoom of the week, and it's only Tuesday. Yes, I checked the calendar. It's Tuesday. It's confusing nowadays. So media, I've been a public relations person, but mostly a media relations person for 30 plus years. And the landscape has certainly changed. And prior to moving to Southern California, I was in New York City most of my life. And even though it's different, this pandemic, the closest thing to me it comes to is 9/11. Again, a different circumstance, but I recall oddly going to the office on 9/12 and 9/13. And I did go to the office, and there were some people there saying, "What do we do?" I said, and we all sat and waited, and we spoke to our friends in the media. And that gets into my, how do we talk to media today? And as this pandemic changes, we talked to them and found out what they wanted, what they needed, so we'd be a resource. So to all of you in your teams, and I know we have people here who are presidents of organizations to media relations people and everything in between. So think about this for your teams. As you're reaching out to your regular media, as you want to be pitching ideas, make sure you're reading that media, watching that media, digesting it. See what they're doing now, and see in 6 weeks, and in 2 months, and in 3 months, how has that changed? How has the media landscape changed? So you want to, it's PR 101. I remember being taught, the first workshop I ever went to with producers or editors was, watch my show, read my column, and then pitch me. So see how it's adapting, because it may have changed. It may be changing. And also your regular contacts, as I believe Kevin was saying earlier, your regular contacts who you've dealt with maybe for years, or your team has dealt with for years, may not be there anymore because there have been such serious layoffs. Okay? When you decide to reach out to media, to be proactive, to pitch your company, to talk about thought leadership you're doing, consider your pitch and personalize it even more than has ever been done before. Nobody wants to see the mass mailings. That's in my don'ts that you see right there. You have to relate to them. I see what you've been writing. I see what the coverage of your network, the blog, the site, the trade journal, etc. Here's some information for you. You want to be that resource. You've always wanted to be the resource, but now, because staff's been cut even more, in the coming weeks, they need information from you based on if you're a not-for-profit or a widget company. Give them the resources, give them the statistics about employment, about manufacturing, about people. Give them the content that will help them do their job easier. Okay, and then as we move along, every email I've been sending out, I've been whittling it down a little bit, but that you've been receiving, I've been receiving, they're all starting now. Hope you and your family are doing well, because we care. It's the greeting. That's going to be the handshake of the future. So, but just consider what you're sending out to media, what you're presenting on your websites, in your marketing material, that could be open to backlash, could be open to insensitivity. Share it with people who are outside of your realm first to see if they get it. Especially if you think you're doing something creative or think you're doing something that may stir the pot a little bit. You don't want to be those people. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples in a moment. You don't want to be that company that the New York Times writes about saying, can you believe I received this kind of pitch from this company? You don't want to be on that list. So really think about how you're pitching, who you're pitching, when you're pitching, and what you're pitching. And as you're developing your messages through your businesses, how they're relevant to the time. And you may need to change them based on how this pandemic moves, through the curve as we're flatlining, and if it maybe bumps up again in the fall. So in the don'ts, again, mass mailings, you need to personalize. So it goes back to the do's. It can't just be generic. It needs to be very specific to whom you're pitching and relevant to that audience. Don't invent a tie-in. People are doing it. We've seen it. I received an email yesterday, and I don't know how it got through my spam filter, from one of the big 4 phone companies, a regional manager or salesperson from a city about 800 miles away from me, tying into COVID, saying, through telecommunications, we need to do blah, blah, blah. Can we meet and discuss about this? I thought it was a horrible pitch to me. I get what he was doing, but it didn't connect with me. And maybe he's getting some response, but the way it was worded, he was trying to use my sensitivity about the situation to sell his service. I didn't like it. Don't come off as profiting from the crisis. Again, you don't want to be creating a new product that's not tied into what you're doing and then pushing it out. It's swarmy and it's not going to make you look good. Yes, will new technologies, will new line of communication such as Zoom be, change over the next few months and years because of this pandemic? Absolutely. There will be, invention is the mother of necessity, correct? But just don't come off swarmy. That seems to be my word of the day. Speaking of swarmy, Mike, if you could just click, here are some actual pitches, some subject lines. Oh, there they are. Oh, so I was expecting the gray box. How about that? That were featured in a New York Times article about a week or so ago. These were either subject lines or in pitch letters. Don't let COVID-19 steal your beauty routine. Even if you are pitching a beauty blog or a beauty magazine, right? Appropriate. They are looking for features. They are looking for content. That's not a good way to do this. This pitch, the second one, this is actually what got somebody very livid. Let me know if you'd like to talk to Star, and it was a name of reckon, for her new film, Dead by Dawn. Happy to coordinate. It was during a really bad news day when that came out, and it was a bad time to do it. And these final two, at a time of uncertainty, feels good to be able to rely on the things we're familiar with, such as floral for spring. They were pitching a shoe. It went to a lifestyle reporter who doesn't cover fashion, and it was wrong. And that reporter sent this pitch out to her list of media, and it was taken quite poorly. Let's put it that way. And we don't even need to. You could read the last one. I won't even address that one. But you don't want to be in those lists. Okay. You need to think about, yes, your subject lines need to be eye-catching. They just can't be wrong. Mike, next page, please. So the same goes, almost more importantly, with social media, because as we all remember, social media posts last forever. You put it up there, you have second thoughts 30 seconds later, guaranteed, if you're having second thoughts, that means somebody has captured it and it's there and it will live forever. So think about it. So if your social media, embrace your personality. What is your brand's personality? Okay, get it out there, push it even stronger, be there for people. As again, as this pandemic is moving, it's going to change the conversation, and your social media will change it as well. But people are looking to thought leaders, and social media is a great place for you to put it, be it Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, or others. Medium, great place to put your content. Engage and respond. Respond and engage. If you put something out there asking for responses from your audience, from your followers, well, just don't leave it hanging there. You have to make sure that you're there and you get back to them. You need to engage. You're going to want to engage, be it positive or negative. Have a content plan prepared for all of your social media that you're sending out there, or that your team is sending out there. Whoever manages it on your team, and think about that as well. It's now time to really consider your social media team. And I know that could be one person, or it could be, a full team. But have a planning deck of what your responses are going to be, both positive and negative, as the situation goes. Be inventive when appropriate. And then also, while you're sending some out, because we've seen the wrong social media go out, think of your team's family. Think of your audience's family. Think about who you're addressing. Would mom want to post it up on her refrigerator if that matters to you? Unless you're totally out there person or company rather, great. But think about the audience, in the broader audience, your third tier audience that's going to start seeing this if something does go viral, which is what you want. You want to build up the content. Think if it's appropriate for them. Some don'ts, as I said, with engagement. Don't post something and then disappear. You need to see who's responding to you and reach out to them if necessary. Don't disappoint. Stick with your brand. Although I'm going to show you one example that has blown my mind of a brand that did not stick with their brand, and they're getting amazing positive coverage because they're doing it the right way. Unless expected, don't offer medical advice, don't offer medical commentary or political commentary. Again, unless that's your brand. If you're the My Best Pillow guy, great, because people expect it from his pillow company, but people also expect religious and political from him. But if you've never done it before, now is not necessarily a good time to do that. So when your CEO, if your CEO comes to you, if you're a brand manager, have a frank conversation with that person. If you're the CEO and you're thinking about it, have a frank conversation with your marketing team. Say, is this right? Is this the right place to do this? This might be the most important. Few of us are doing it, but there are enough people that it's worth the warning. Don't have automated messages going out. A lot of people have them scheduled through a Hootsuite, TweetDeck, something like that. Don't do it, because let's say you've got it scheduled for the week out or even a day out, and then something bad happens about this pandemic and you're sending out a light social media post or something that is incorrect information at the time, it's going to reflect poorly on you. Okay. And just as a reminder, don't ignore your social media. It's there. It is so important in the media. The traditional media is looking at your social media. They want to see you as thought leaders. They're looking for thought leadership from you. And that is going to be able to be shared so well through social media, because again, getting with the traditional media, not, the CNNs, you know what they're covering. CNBC, you know what they're covering. Although if it's financial, you can get in there if it's appropriate for you. But I want to show you one quick example of a company that surprisingly is doing it right. Steak-umm. Do you remember Steak-umms from when you were, well, for me, it was in middle school. It's the first thing I was able to cook. I was able to make a cheesesteak on the stovetop. I started seeing that Steak-umm was sending posts out about this pandemic and about the rules of the road. And I thought this was very odd, but it turns out their messaging, they've done this before when there have been other tragedies or other situations, and they're a voice of reason. And their product is selling out in stores right now. People are finding their posts relatable. It goes 100% against the grain, but it's working for them. They're being very simple, sort of to the point. And I recommend go take a look at their Twitter feed. It's really quite fascinating how they've taken a brand that is not top of mind, not in the top 100 brands you would have thought of, but they've become a thought leader through this pandemic. So I hope that's been helpful. And if not, we're going to go back now about 150 years with my friend Casey. He doesn't look that old, but he's got one last tip for you before we get to the Q&A. And look forward to hearing more from you soon.
Yeah, 7 years ago, folks. But anyways, we were looking at historically, right? What we learned from the crisis sprints in the past, boy, nothing bigger than what Mr. President Lincoln was going through Civil War. But the Gettysburg Address, if you've not read it, read it. It's a 2.5-minute soliloquy of beautifully worded prose of what to do and how to do it. And so a couple different undertakings here, a couple points here I want to make is it shows gratitude. It shows empathy. It provides a clear vision and really to what's going on in the future. But my favorite piece here is it provides a rebirth, kind of showcasing that we're not going back as business as usual, nor should we. We're going to have a nation that's reborn. We're going to have a company that's reborn. We're going to have an institution or a nonprofit that's going to be reborn. So a 2.5-minute presentation of speech that covers all this, yeah, it did it. And so again, I encourage you to take a look at not only the Gettysburg Address, but some others as well, because let's learn from past crises so we can move forward to bigger and better things. So Mike, I'll point out to you for some from Q&A.
Okay, great. We'd like to open up the Q&A session. I'd like to, first of all, thank the panelists. You should see a Q&A button on the bottom of your screen if you've got some questions. We've got quite a few people here. I see a couple of questions in there already. I'd be surprised we don't get a larger number of questions, or maybe we just did such a wonderful job of explaining.
But Mike, I'd like to take on one of the questions, if that's okay.
Go ahead, David.
Sure. Someone asked, and I'm not going to give a specific example, but someone asked, what's the best television ad you've seen lately that's sensitive to this time? It's interesting. There are a lot, as you've seen, as television viewing has gone up over these last 5 weeks. Oddly, it said, I saw a statistic today that it's increased 1 hour a day for everybody. You think that's not a lot, but if you think about how much TV you watch, that actually is quite a bit. And a lot of the ads out there, and we're PR people, not necessarily full-time advertising. We have some advertising. A lot of the ads, don't they blend in? To me, that's where some of the messaging is going wrong. It's the same sentimental music. It's the same, it's a great message. We care about our employees. We care about our customers. We're here for you. It's hard to distinguish between a Walmart ad and a Home Depot ad and an Allstate insurance ad and a McDonald's ad right now. So I think everyone is out there with best of intentions, but I don't think there's an ad that truly stands out. Burger King did something yesterday, and I won't get it correct. I saw an ad for them. You can go in and get a free Whopper. Oh no, you can get it to go to stay at home, and they're very creative. So I think there was something there about that. And also, I do think the auto insurance companies have done pretty well just getting their message out that, hey, we know you're not driving as much. We're giving you a refund. And when we're hearing everyone's getting a refund, and you actually see that in your next bill, that's a positive to them. I think they're doing a very good job.
Good stuff, David. I'm going to tackle this question from rushing the recovery, how to communicate and not necessarily kind of have a sense of rushing, getting back to operations, back to service. How will we know if we are rushing the process? It's really hard to know if you are rushing the process, but certainly I think the advice we would give you is to kind of take a step-by-step approach. Take as you see things are unfolding, anticipating what's going to happen ahead of time. That's okay to make sure that you are communicating to that end. I don't necessarily see it as a rush, but I see it as more of a timely, topical addressing the situation. And I think it's one of those things where, as I mentioned earlier, having a regular contact with your target audience. It's not rush, but more lines of a vision for the future.
So we've got a suggestion as well from one of our attendees, and she suggests coordinate your key points and messages with everyone communicating for the company on any channel. Don't send mixed messages, and coordinate so that the messages go out in the same time frame. I think that's a really good advice and something we all need to do. We often help clients do a communications audit where we look at just that type of a thing to make sure that there isn't any disconnect between their messaging, particularly in large, complex organizations that have different owners of different messages. There's always a need to go back and make sure that those messages are aligned with the brand and coordinated and supportive of each other and don't contradict each other in any way. So thanks for that suggestion.
Somebody asked if reporters and editors are so busy with COVID-19, is it even possible to pitch a non-COVID-19 story? And the answer is yes, but it goes back to some of the points I raised of follow the media, see what they're writing about. I do a lot of work in the automotive industry, so there are the auto trades who are still talking about cars that are coming up in the fall. New technologies in automobiles, new ads that are coming out. Some of the automotive companies I work for are doing charitable work, so we're tying that in as well. But it sort of goes back to the person who's pitching shoes. You don't pitch the shoes to the automotive writer, you pitch the shoes to the fashion writer who is, and the influencers who still are out there, who are still posting that. Also, if again, in consumer, anything food related is working really well. Home care, landscaping, all home design. People are home now, so they have more time to do things. So you need to think about what it is you're pitching and pitch it to the right person. That's where I said, don't do a big blanket mass email, targeted, and it could be received well.
Let me tackle this question about if you received federal loans report of your business, is it okay to talk about that? Or does it reflect negatively on you or the company? It really is a case-by-case basis for sure. I think the short answer here from our perspective is it's okay. I think providing transparency to your audience, obviously to the board, to the your staff, and to the other constituents as far as your company, it's okay, because there's no shame in receiving federal loan. In what more lines, does it necessarily have to be broad community consumption that you have done so? That's up to you. But from a communication side to your internal constituents, I think it's a-okay.
I'll just add on to that I think we're seeing this play out in real time right now with news stories. The lists are out there about who's receiving these dollars, and there are companies who, one organization, Shake Shack, which is a chain of restaurants, gave back $10 or $15 million when it became public that they had taken those funds. And I believe they're an organization worth $250 million or something. Harvard University was in the news today in Boston for receiving $9 million in federal funding when they have an endowment that is worth billions of dollars. So their brand is going to take a little heat for this, and we'll see how they respond. But that just came out today.
Someone asked a question, and I had to deal with this recently. How do you handle press conferences or breaking news given social distancing in order of no gatherings of more than 10 people? I would not recommend a press conference unless it is fully necessary. If you work for the sheriff's department, the government of any sort, there are no movie premieres, and even down the road, let's assume we're talking entertainment or not. So going back to press conference, if you feel the need to do a press conference, you get a lot of towns and national will use a pool reporter, or if you watch Governor Cuomo's press conferences from New York, he'll have 3 reporters. They're sitting about 10 feet from each other, asking the questions, and just a couple of cameras in the background. So I wouldn't recommend a press conference right now. You could also do it this way, via Zoom, if you need to do a press conference, because media is understanding of that. And you can do a Zoom teleconference of some sort. You can do one-on-ones as well. And then also, one of my clients is a pediatrician's office, and actually they're very large. They have 9 offices, and the doctor is doing parking lot drive-through appointments with children, because certain parents, and understandably, don't want to bring their kids into a doctor's office. We got a few news crews to come down at separate times to come into the parking lot and observe the doctor doing an appointment, literally opening the back door and checking on an infant and a 4-year-old who had an ear infection. So we were able to bring them in. Everyone stayed their distance. They had a boom microphone, and it worked out well. And the television and the TV segments actually worked out very well. So you just need to coordinate that. Again, a press conference you can do via Zoom. If you have breaking news, it will work well that way. And I wouldn't worry about it. But I wouldn't call a press conference with a room of 50 people, because you just can't. Again, it may change. It's going to change in the coming months, obviously.
So one question here is, any advice on planning ahead for future communications when information, guidelines, and directives from the government are unclear or changing on a daily basis? Oh, wow. Yeah, this is a tough one, because we're all getting missed messages, right? And really, where is our guiding principle? What are the clear directions we're getting from all over? My advice really is more lines of, as always, as you've always done, whatever your company is, whatever industry you are, work in the best interest of your customers and your staff. And based off of information locally, hopefully you can heed their advice and certainly jump in and provide perspective, but certainly act in their best interest, and then let that be your guiding light and provide your translation, your characterization of what that meant, and then what it means for your customers and your staff. David, sounds like you have something else you want to add to that?
Nope.
Okay.
So I'll take the next one. So someone's asking, what tips would you give a client who is asked to do a TV interview via Zoom? So I actually just set one of these up today for a client, and I gave her the same advice that I give myself when I get on a Zoom call is, get your spouse to take the dogs for a walk so they're out of the house, so that when the UPS guy delivers a package, the dogs aren't barking. And then we set up a test, so we'll do a test run via Zoom prior to the actual call with a reporter, just to make sure the technology is working properly. She's encouraged her to use a headset so that she's got clear audio coming through. Make sure there's a suitable background, enough lighting, quiet space where you won't be interrupted. And then be comfortable on camera. And this is, for a lot of clients, Zooms can be a little different because you can see yourself in real time as opposed to having a television reporter holding a camera in front of you. You're not seeing yourself as you're speaking. So the Zoom calls can be a little disjointing for clients that haven't gone through that. So practice is really important. Take them through a dry run once or twice to get them comfortable with it. And then absolutely make sure that all the technology is working properly, because that's the one thing that will fail you and will frustrate the reporter at the media outlet, is if you've gone through all the work to set it up, get it scheduled, dials in, and then something happens on the client side technology-wise that prevents the interview from being executed. It's really a lost opportunity, and it hurts your relationship a little bit with the reporter. So practice and prepare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me just break in here. I think we've got, we're going to take about one more question here. So David, be thinking about that. I'm throwing it out to you. Okay. And I just want to let everyone thank everyone again for coming and sticking with us. I hope we've been helpful to you. If we can be of additional help, you see on the screen the names of not only myself and the panelists, but our other office leads as well. So feel free to reach out to any of us if you need additional help. David, you want to answer one final question for us?
Sure, I'm going to do two because it's going to be the first one's going to be very fast. Someone asked if they're doing or businesses are doing charity work related to COVID, donations, etc. Is it okay to communicate about this? The answer is yes, and that's where you use your social media, photos of how you're doing it, and get it out there. You want to be anonymous? That's totally fine too. But if you're doing something interesting for your community, absolutely do it. So that is my opinion there. And then the last question, some companies are sort of almost ignoring that COVID has happened and the pandemic has happened, and they're just selling as if nothing ever happened. Is that going to affect them down the road? Will people hold that against them? We'll find out in the next few months. If it's working for them, they'll continue. If they notice sales are going down, or that their social media references and their social media engagement is trending negative, they should stop that. But if it's working, again, don't tie it into COVID if you don't have to. But if you're just selling shoes because you need to sell shoes, go ahead and sell shoes. So I think everyone will be, and if they're not, should be adjusting their messaging as we move along over the next 6 months to a year, because it's going to take that long, if not longer, before we get back to normal. And even normal is going to be a new normal. Just like after 9/11, it's going to be a new normal. So thank you all for your really great questions.
I just have one quick comment to add on to what David said about communicating about charitable activity. Is now is not the time to tie your charitable activity to sales. So if your charitable activity is, for every widget you buy from us, we'll donate $1 to COVID relief, now it's not the time to do that. Don't tie your charitable activities to the sales of your products. Mm-hmm. Sends the wrong message.
Good thought. Thank you, David. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Casey. And thank you to everyone who has stuck with us here. Again, I hope it's helped. Feel free to reach out to any one of us, and we'll be seeing you again soon.